Now, what do you do when you've done all this work? You've created custom swatches and created brushes and shapes and made your own tool presets. We want to make sure we don't have to do all that work again, because part of the whole idea of this is to not only customize it, but make our life simpler. So, what I suggest, very strongly recommend you do, is once you've gone to the trouble of making your own custom presets, you want to go to the Preset Manager under the Edit menu. Now, this is the place that, first of all, controls all the content of what's in your various presets. So if you find yourself not using particular styles, then you certainly can go here, as we talked about before, and delete them. But at this point, what I want to do is I want to create kind of a backup system here, so that if all else fails and if things go horribly wrong, which I'm sure will never happen, but just in case, we want to make sure we have a backup plan. So what we do is we go into each one of these preset areas. We'll start off with brushes. Here's the brush that I created previously, and we'll pretend that I created these other ones as well. And I choose Save Set. Now, it's going to prompt me at first to save in a particular folder, which is inside the Photoshop CS4 application folder in Presets. And this is actually a pretty good idea, because if you save your brushes in here, as I've done previously, that means the next time you launch Photoshop, you'll have your brushes available from a pull-down menu, which is pretty interesting. So we'll see that afterwards when after I restart Photoshop. But the other thing that I would suggest you do, I'm just going to call this something, is once you've already saved this preset, then go somewhere else completely outside of Photoshop. In fact, it wouldn't be a bad idea to do it on a completely separate hard drive that you use for backup. Make a new folder. I'm going to call it Dave's Custom Presets, and I hit the Create button, and then I save my brushes in there. And what I would do is repeat that for each thing. I go to my Swatches panel. Here's the 3 swatches that I created previously. I would choose Save Set. Again, it's going to prompt me to save it into the Color Swatches panel first, so I would do that first, then go back a second time and go to my Custom Presets folder. So eventually you would go through each one of the ones on this list. Anywhere where you had custom styles or custom shapes or whatever it might be, always doing it twice. The first time, saving the set so it's going to be built into Photoshop, and the second time, saving it outside of Photoshop as a backup plan. Alright, so let's pretend we've done all that. I'm going to restart Photoshop here. Now remember, one of the things that I did was I saved each of those presets in the prompted folder, which is the preset folder inside Photoshop. So now here's what happens after restarting Photoshop. I go to use the brush tool, I go to my choices, but I can also come here to my pop-down menu, and look, right there at the bottom is my set of brushes that I previously created. So now instead of having to go worry about where did I put them, they're going to be right there under the menu, and that would apply to each of the things we've saved, like shapes and swatches and so on. So that's the first part. The second part is, imagine that Photoshop, something goes very, very wrong and you have to reinstall everything. Then what you would do, you'd lost all your presets, you would have to go back to the Preset Manager, and this time you'd hit the Load button, and when it asks where to load it from, you would go back to that place you had your custom presets and load them back in from there. And this, by the way, is also how you move presets from one version of Photoshop to another. So when the next version of Photoshop comes out, that's the other reason for doing this backup, is now when you get the new version, you go to the Preset Manager, which of course would be empty, and you load all of your presets from this folder you created, the one outside of Photoshop, and you would load them back in. Now, the one exception to this whole thing is actions. If you've created any customized actions, you'd have to do that separately. You'd have to go to your Actions panel, pick the set of actions that you wanted to create a backup, and choose Save Actions. That would prompt you to save it somewhere, and then those, again, you could load back into Photoshop later on.